Hey, awesome people. Welcome back. Mr. C here with you. Thanks for tuning into our fraction series. Make sure, if you learned anything new, click the like and subscribe button. Join us as we continue making math understandable and challenging. Today's video is going to be an additional video to what we worked on in our previous videos, which we were comparing two fractions with different denominators using multiplication. All right, so this is going to be just kind of an add-on to what we've already done. I felt like we needed to work on it just a little bit more because it's such an important strategy. So again, this video is going to be focusing on multiplication strategy to compare fractions with different denominators. Also, in the description below, you will find all of our 4th grade fractions playlist, our 3rd grade's fraction playlist, and our 2nd grade fractions playlist. So check all of those out. Get caught up to where we are today. Again, we are going to continue working on comparing fractions using the multiplication strategy. Let's get started. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, this is going to be practicing on what we worked on last week. I just felt like it was important for us to go over this strategy, this multiplication strategy, a little bit more because it's a strategy we're going to be using a lot, especially when we're about to start adding and subtracting fractions. And so just want to spend a little bit more time on it because this is such an important strategy. It can be a little bit of a challenge as well. So let's go over a few problems today, do a little bit more practice together, and then get you ready for what is coming next. Make sure that you do have a growth mindset for this video. Make sure that you're okay with the challenge. Make sure you're okay with making mistakes. Use your mistakes to help you get better. So if you make a mistake, find it and then fix it in the next problem, okay? Don't let your mistakes completely throw you off. Use them to help you get better. So, with that being the case, we've got our two fractions on the screen here. We've got 3/4 and we've got 5/8. And what we need to do is we need to compare these fractions, okay? Right now, though, it's kind of hard to compare them because the denominators are not the same. Okay, the denominators are different, and that just makes it kind of hard right now. Sure, once you get to more advanced and the more you practice this, you're going to be able to compare them by just looking at these two fractions. But right now, I want you to make sure you know a strategy to compare two fractions. And the strategy we're going to focus on today, and what we've focused on already, is the multiplication strategy. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking these fractions and we're going to be multiplying. Let me redraw that. We're going to be taking these two fractions and we're going to be multiplying the numerators and the denominators, and then we're going to compare them. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to find a denominator that both of these fractions have in common. Okay, so right now the denominators are 4 and they're 8. And what we're going to do is try to figure out what denominator do both of these fractions have in common. And if you remember what we did last week is we wrote down our denominators over here on the side. So I wrote down 4 and I'll write down 8. And what we're going to do is we're going to skip count by our denominators. Okay, so let's just skip count a couple times here. We've got 4, 8, 12, 16, and I can keep on going. Again, just do a couple of them. You don't have to go to infinity. Just do a couple of them. 8, 16, 24, 32. All right. So now that we've skip counted here, what we're trying to do is see which one, if they have a number in common. Okay, we're looking for the smallest number they have in common, or the LCD, the least common denominator. The least common denominator we're looking for is the number that they both have in common that is the smallest. Okay, so when you're looking at these numbers here and you're looking at these numbers here, do you see a number that they have in common? Well, I notice two numbers they have in common. I notice the number 8 and the number 16. Okay, when that happens, what I want you to do, especially in this problem, we're looking for the least, the LCD. The least means the smallest number they have in common. And in our problem here, the 8 is the smallest number they have in common. Do you remember what that information tells us? Well, what that information allows us to do is it allows us to create equivalent fractions over here. So our equivalent fraction for 3/4 is going to have a denominator of 8. Our equivalent fraction for 5/8 is going to have a denominator of 8. And this is going to make it really, really easy for us to compare these two fractions because their denominators are going to be the same. When their denominators are the same, that means all we're going to have to do is look at the numerators and figure out which one is bigger or which one is smaller or if they're equal to each other. Okay? So, here's the next part. How did this 4, all right, let me erase this so I can draw them in while we're doing it. How did this 4 become this 8? Well, if you remember from last week, we're going to multiply. We're going to do 4 times what will give you 2. And remember, you have a cheat sheet over here on the left. The cheat sheet tells us that we skip counted 1, 2 times. A lot of you probably already know, though, that 4 times 2 equals 8. Okay? So if we multiply the denominator by 2, what do we need to do to the numerator? Do y'all remember? Well, if we multiply the denominator by 2, we have to do the same thing to the numerator. So multiply the numerator times 2. What is 3 times 2? That is 6. There you go. Now let's do the same thing over here. All right, let's do the same thing for 5/8. How did this 8 turn into this 8? And it's not a trick question, okay? I know sometimes it can be a little tricky. What'd you do? How many times did you skip count? You skip counted 1 time. You multiplied it 8 times 1 because 8 times 1 gives you 8. So if we multiply the denominator by 1, what are we doing to the numerator? Well, you kind of figuring this out now. You're going to multiply the numerator by 1. So 5 times 1 is what? It is 5. Okay, so take a look at these two fractions. What we did was for 3/4, we created an equivalent fraction, which was 6/8. And for 5/8, we created an equivalent fraction, or the same fraction, for 5/8. And the reason we're doing this is because it's way easier for us to compare these fractions now. Because if you look, both fractions have an 8. Okay, that makes it easy. Now, which one is, look at the numerators here. This numerator is 6, this numerator is 5. That tells us right there that we can compare them. We can compare these two fractions because now they're the same sized pieces. Okay, 6/8 is the same size as the pieces are as 5/8. And so if I ask you which comparison symbol goes here, which one is it? It's going to be the greater than symbol. 6/8 is greater than 5/8. Okay, but again, what I told you in that first video is technically you're not done yet. You're not done yet because our original problem was 3/4 and 5/8. Remember, our original problem was 3/4 and 5/8. This is what we were trying to figure out. We were trying to figure out, is 3/4 greater than, less than, or equal to 5/8, and that's why we did all this work. Okay. Right now, this is just a good strategy to use. Again, eventually, the more practice you get at this, you're going to be able to visualize 3/4 and 5/8 in your head. You're going to be able to see the fraction 3/4, and you're going to be like, Mr. C, I know what that looks like. You're going to look at the fraction 5/8, and you're going to be able to say, Mr. C, I know what 5/8 looks like. Okay? And once you can do that, you're not going to have to do all this work here. All right? But that is okay to do the work right now. That's what I want you to understand. Take your time, create a strategy, use the strategies we're showing you here, and just slow down. It may take you a little bit longer, but what you've done is you've proved to yourself that you can compare two fractions. Fractions that have different denominators, you can compare them by multiplying. We've practiced it by using fraction models. We've used number lines. all of those different strategies you have in your tool belt now, and that's going to really help you as we get ready to add and subtract fractions. And you guys have done such a tremendous job. I got so many messages on our past video for wanting more practice and wanting to dig into it a little bit more. Make sure you try some of these on your own. Get some other fractions. Try them out. Practice them, okay? The more you practice, the better you are going to get. Make sure, if you're still a little bit lost, watch our teaching video that we did last week. Those are in the fraction playlist videos. Check those out. Go back, look at our practice problem videos. Use them to help you get better. Ask mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, brother, sister, teacher. If you're still not understanding, shoot me an email. All of my socials are at the end of this video. Reach out. Let me know if we need more practice so that way we can be on track. Excellent work on this. Stick with it. I'm excited about adding and subtracting fractions. That is coming up soon. Make sure, if you learned anything new at all, click that like and subscribe button. Join us as we continue making math understandable and challenging. That's all I have for you today. Mr. C, out.